Let's go with it. I want to hear a little bit more about your background for everyone, Alex. Where did you grow up, and how did you become an entrepreneur?
I think my road to being an entrepreneur, broadly defined, so building things. Now, I would define my role as building things that transform key aspects of society. That's what we built at Palantir. It's software as a transforming engine. Really began with, like many things, something I didn't want and was not overly forward about in public, which was my dyslexia, which I hid. So I was very good at certain things, and I would say still am, that other people are not as good at. I legitimately saw the world differently. My brain was structured differently than other people, and I was able to perform at a professional level in certain areas, even as a young kid, but then really was hindered in other areas. And we had this weird family structure where my mom was in grad school as an artist, and everybody was an artist, so they were outside the norm. It was a heavily Jewish environment. My mom is black. We were pro-Israel, and super erudite, heavily Jewish environment. Everything about my life was further outside the norm than I realized.
It's like extreme outsider for in a lot of ways.
There's no insider bias with that. Yeah. I would have loved to be an insider somewhere, and the minute I could be an insider, I'm like, shit, I'm dyslexic. So it's like, I used to wonder as a little kid, how could this get worse? I was like, but, it's like, I mean, not in a sense that I was, thought that it was bad, but I was like, this is just like, and I always thought from the beginning, and this is why, despite what people thought about Palantir sometimes, I view Palantir as a civil liberties juggernaut. That doesn't mean everyone in the civil liberties community will ever agree with us, but I always thought if fascism comes, I will be the first or second person on the wall.
Because you're like the most outside, who they're going to target.
There's and this is before I had tendies. So now I was like, no matter what happens, if something goes wrong in society, I'm done for. And America's changed a lot, but it just in every environment I went into. But on the other hand, I was also a deep insider. So it's this insider outsider. My family is just so highly educated. Mm-hmm. So it's not just the case that I was an outsider, but I was an insider in terms of understanding art, science, to some extent math through my father, but anything historical or cultural through my mom. I mean, I spent every weekend in museums, at cultural events. It took a decade after leaving home before I could even go to a museum because we just had to spend so much time. And so that insider of what I would call the fundamental structures of Western thought and art, which I then later refined in grad school, but while simultaneously not belonging, but at the same time believing, and I believe this still, the only way in which non-belonging people belong is in the context of a Western society that protects the rule of law, that protects the right of free expression, that protects your property rights, that de facto protects unpleasant people. Like our societies are still the best, though flawed, at protecting people who are unpopular because of their views, because of their habits, because of who they are, and that resonates with me on all fronts. And in fact, and then who make people, because I can see myself in all those people.